guys, sorry I got started without showing you all, but I wanted to get this part of it removed, and I'm not seeing any instructions, you guys, so let me take a moment, see if I can find any instructions online. I'll be right back with you. So this is what I've been able to determine. Of course, these go right on here, not over these little screws, but right on the outsides, and just anywhere in this area is fine. These two legs were just kind of fit together like that, pull them apart, and one is going to go on each side. So the legs pointing towards the top of the ramp, which is over here, the one where the screws are furthest to the edge, and then this screw and nut stays in place, and this bottom one, hopefully you guys can see with the wing nut, is actually what is used to change the height of the ramp. So you take the wing nut off, take the screw out, you'll rotate, and it'll be a lot easier once this is mounted up to the ramp. You'll rotate this to one of the 4 holes, put the wing nut back on, tighten it down, and that's how you change the height. These 2 holes on both of these are going to be screwed in to the side. Ignore that. Here and here. So there's 2 screws on this, or 2 holes on this side, 2 on the other side, where these 4 larger bolts with the locking nuts are going to be used for. There's 5 screws here with 5 wing nuts. That is going to be used to secure this piece. And I still need to look into exactly how that's mounted up, but then this connects these 2 ends together. So that's what these last 2 screws are for, right in the middle of the pack. It's so that the left and right side of the ramp legs stay together. So that's going to be underneath like that. I'm going to get started, and I'll show you guys a little bit closer towards the end product and then exactly where this gets mounted up. Alright, so I've got the first leg on, I've got the 2 longer screws and the locking nylon nuts on the back side. This is a 13mm wrench, fits on perfectly to the nut right back here. And then I've got just a star bit, the correct size. If you have a hex bit, that works better, but this should be okay for tightening this down. Of course, we don't want to over tighten. I'm just going to check that fitment. Okay. I will do the final tightening by hand once we have everything 95% installed. I'm going to flip this over and do the same thing to the other side. So while I'm in this position, I wanted to show you guys, I had to loosen up this nut right here in order to freely move this leg. So if you were going to store this away, once you're finished with it, I've got the tripod in the way, but I'm going to lean this forward. You would turn this leg all the way like this to this hole, and then drop the screw through and put the wing nut on in order to store it. Whenever you're ready to use it, you can remove that, open this up to the desired height, and then put the wing nut back on. Like I said, I had to loosen this up just a little bit in order for that to move, but there's a locking nut on that side. Once you get this on, the wing nut tightened down, this shouldn't move, it should be really strong. All right, and to get up here, just used 2 screws. These 2 were from the middle part of that pack and attached the rod that goes from leg to leg. Now, this is not being screwed into, you know, like a locking nylon nut or anything. So if you wanted to, I think that you would be just fine if you put a little bit of Loctite on these screw threads before screwing it down and locking it down. Whenever you go to fold this up and store it away, this rod should never have to come off. So you can leave it on there permanently with the thread lock and then fold it up as needed. For the last piece, which is this transition plate from the ground to the ramp, you've got these 5 screw holes that line up with these 5 holes here, and you can even line up the 2 right here that was there in shipping with the 2 screws we took off originally. Now, if you wanted to, whenever you go to store this, you know, you can take this off, flip it around, and put those 2 screws in here. I think for me, I've got a place to store this permanently when I'm not using it, where I don't have to take this on and off. So I'm gonna leave it on after I put this part on. So I got everything tightened up on these sides here. Be sure not to over tighten because this is aluminum square tubing. It's very strong, but you know, just keep in mind it is aluminum. You could crush it with the right tools. I loosened up this pivot point just a little bit. That way whenever I take the wing nuts off of the adjustment screw point off of both sides, I can pivot how tall this is. So last thing I'm going to do is put the grip tape on. I'm actually going to have it come all the way down just in front of where this screws down. Basically, well, that's pretty much the only spot you're going to put it because of where that is. So looks like I've got a little bit of fitment issue right around here where this screw is. So I think what I am actually going to do, this is going to be kind of a pain in the butt, but I want to keep this really nice for a long time. So I'm going to loosen this screw up, lift this plastic transfer piece up, and tuck that underneath there so that this is just below this screw up here, and it's really nice and flat, consistent all the way through. The other thing we're going to do before we actually stick this on is just take a little bit of water and wipe this down. We want this to be as clean as possible whenever we go to stick this on because we do not want that coming off. So I've got the old ramp, the one that I made out, as well as the new TBoneRacing airtime ramp. This is, I believe, the 3rd generation. We're going to test these side by side. The TBoneRacing is at its highest position. The old model, it seemed like it went more vertical than this one. It seems like this one maxes out at just under 45 degrees. So we've got the Traxxas Max out. It's going to help us with testing the new ramp in comparison with the old one, and you guys will see what some of those jumps will look like. And then next we'll move into kind of the pros and cons of each of these ramps. It's holding up construction wise. It's looking good, nothing bent, nothing twisted. Okay, so that is the highest setting on the ramp. I'm not even going to test the lower settings. We know what that kind of gives us. Initial impression is this, even though it's only a little bit smaller than the ramp that I built, this is a little bit harder for me to hit, and that's just a 10th scale. With the x-maxx and the Creighton, of course, I can hit this ramp, jump off of it. I'm not sure if this is going to be strong enough to actually handle the weight of those 2 vehicles. So I sent an email to TBoneRacing asking them if this should handle the weight of the new 5th scale Arrma Creighton EXB. I weighed it, it's about 30 pounds, just under 30 pounds, so I sent them an email. I asked them if I run it and jump it off this ramp and it damages the ramp, is it covered? And I'm waiting to hear back from them before I do it. If not, as it sits here today, I haven't even gone through the other pros and cons, but this is $250 and I'm not sure that it's worth $250. All right, so I moved the camera in hopes of getting less wind noise, but let's say I need to move these 2 ramps someplace else. Here's the difference between the 2. This one, really light, really easy to move, no issues whatsoever. Place it down and go ahead and jump. With this one, it's a lot heavier, so I start by lifting from in here, where I've got this cross brace, and then I lift it all the way up, grab this brace in here, and have to lift it up so that I get the full support of my arm lifting it. Now, I'm already a little bit winded from picking it up, so moving it around like this, wouldn't be able to move it very far. And then setting it in place. Of course, it's not going to go anywhere once you set it down. So let's test another scenario where we would actually load these up in a vehicle to take somewhere else. Loading up the homemade ramp. Because of the size of the bed, in order to put this on so that it's a little more stable, I can't just do this, right? I mean, I could just set it in here and leave it sideways like that. I also have two pieces of two boards that I can lay across the side here so that it's stable like that, but I can get it in here like this, close the gate, be fine. But that was a lot of work, kind of difficult to do. But once I have it in here, I can just strap it down either using these clips or wrapping a strap around here. I've done that in the past. And then getting it out. For this, you can just set it in. And best way is upside down, like that. And I'd actually leave this up if I wanted to, and use it to strap it and hold it in place so it doesn't blow out. Let's see if we can fit this into my wife's car. All right, you guys, so initially looking at it, if we tried to fit this in sideways like this, it would fit in, but we would have to put the seats down. Now, my wife has a car seat in the back for our nephew, so we actually can't put the seats down, so this wouldn't fit in the trunk. But this is a smaller vehicle, it's a Nissan Sentra, so if you had your back seats free, you could theoretically put it in the back, put the seats down, and it fit just fine. Let's just see. So it looks like it is just a little bit too long. All right, so it's a little too wide for this vehicle. This is a narrow vehicle, but again, we're kind of a little short. If we wanted to, we could take the transfer plate at the very bottom, take all the screws off. That would enable us to move this down a little bit more and be able to shut this door. With storage in mind for both of these, as you can see, this one can be folded down flat and laid flat somewhere, or stood up on its side like this, or like this, and stored out of the way. With this one, because it's a solid construction, you're either left leaving it like it is like this, or storing it upright like this and up against the wall somewhere. You're kind of limited with how exactly you can store it. All right, final thoughts, you guys. Honestly, I'm not thrilled about the performance of the ramp. It's nice that you can adjust the height and change it from 45 degrees down to 25 degrees or so. It's nice that it's portable, but I have a truck and I'm still young enough I can move that big ramp around. I usually just jump here at home, but if I do take it like to the park that you guys sometimes see, it's really not a big deal to load it in the back of the truck. If you don't have a truck and you don't have a yard where you can build a ramp, store it like in a shed or somewhere like I do, then something like the TBoneRacing Airtime ramp it's a good choice. To me, it's not worth $250. It's a lot of money for 4, 5, 6 pieces of aluminum and some plastic. Essentially, it probably cost them $40 to make, so and some hardware. To me, it's just not worth it. I can build a much better ramp for less and keep it fairly compact. And for the same money, I could build a huge ramp to do huge jumps off of if I've got the yard space and the storage space for a ramp that big. So now that I have paid for it, I own it, am I going to keep it, or am I going to reach out to TBoneRacing and see if they'll take a return? I'm actually going to reach out to see if they'll take a return. $250 for a ramp is a lot of money, and for me personally, I have the other ramp. I plan on building a bigger ramp. It's just not worth it. Now, if they'll say that they'll take it back, but I've got to pay, $30 shipping or $40, I don't know how much it's going to be to ship that back. I don't know if they'll pay for shipping. You know what, you guys, while I've been sitting here talking to you, I was looking at the ramp and I actually noticed something broke. So, as you guys saw, I just had the little Max jumping off of it. Look here. This rivet, right in here and here, both of them broke right off. And so it's going to be underneath this plastic piece. But yeah, both those rivets, I'm looking at them right now, have popped off from underneath here. So if I want to still use this, I'm going to have to reinforce this somehow. Okay, well, there's your definitive answer. Definitely not worth 250 bucks. Definitely not up to the task of even jumping a 10th scale Traxxas Max with it. Completely stock. And you're going to pull rivets out. Well, there's my review, you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it was insightful. If this helped you in deciding or not deciding to buy this ramp, let me know by leaving a like, comment down below. If you have any questions, concerns, whatever, I want to hear from you. Be sure to share this video with your friends because people need to know about that. This is apparently a Gen 3 ramp, and that is not acceptable for a $250 ramp.